I was standing next to my cousin, holding her wedding bouquet, when I found out she wasn't my cousin at all. She was my sister. And everyone, my parents, my aunt, even the bride, had known for 14 years. Hi, I'm Rachel, and I thought I understood my family. Until her wedding shattered everything. What would you do if your entire identity was built on a lie? Would you forgive, or walk away to start over? Tell me in the comments, have you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything you believed? I stepped into the bridal suite like a ghost, quietly, deliberately, one hand wrapped around the hanger of the steamed lavender dress, and the other clinging to the silence I'd worn all day like a second skin. Taylor Swift was playing low on someone's Bluetooth speaker, the faint sound of Lover threading through the room like perfume. The scent of vanilla candles and hairspray hung thick in the air. 3 bridesmaids were laughing near the mirrors, glasses of Prosecco in hand, their pastel robes shifting with every sudden gesture. Lauren sat in the makeup chair, her head tilted back, a stylist fixing the last few pins into the veil. Donna, my mother, or something like it, stood beside her, tucking a loose curl behind her ear with the kind of maternal intimacy that always stung just a bit too much. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I was just there for the steamer. That was all. She still doesn't know, right? Lauren said with a giggle, holding still as the stylist adjusted her updo. She'll smile through anything, Donna replied calmly. That girl always did. My body reacted before my brain did. I froze mid-step, my fingers clenched around the hanger so tightly it creaked. I felt the corner of the dress dig into my palm, and yet I didn't let go. That girl. I didn't know who they were talking about exactly, not until the laugh that followed. Lauren's. Light, carefree, the kind of laugh you only give when the truth isn't your burden. The hanger slipped. The dress slid from my hand and crumpled to the floor with a soft hiss of satin on carpet. Heads turned. "No what?" I said, louder than I meant to. My voice was raw. It cracked somewhere in the middle. I was no longer a bridesmaid. I was no longer holding anything. Donna's hand, still resting lightly on Lauren's shoulder, stiffened. "Rachel," she said, her voice even but her face pale. "You weren't supposed to hear that." My breath caught in my throat. I looked at Lauren. Her face said everything. She knew. She had always known. "You weren't supposed to find out like this," Donna added quietly. Like this. Like it was the method that offended her. Not the secret. Not the lie. I blinked. Once. Twice. My heart was racing in my ears, drowning out the music, the murmuring bridesmaids, the smell of perfume that now made me nauseous. "Find out what?" I asked, though part of me already knew. My voice was a whisper now. No one answered. My fingers brushed against the veil that had somehow landed at my feet. I picked it up without thinking and placed it gently on the chair. It felt too sacred to step over, even now. Lauren stood. "Rachel." "No," I said. My voice was clearer this time. Sharper. "Let me guess. I'm not your cousin. I'm not anyone's niece. I'm the secret. The family inconvenience." "Don't be dramatic," Donna said, and that was when something inside me, something carefully constructed over years of polite smiles and obedient silence, cracked wide open. 14 years, I said. You sat across from me at dinner, kissed my forehead before school, told me I was yours. 14 years and you couldn't say one real thing. Donna sighed. We did what was best for you. You mean what was best for your reputation? She flinched, just slightly. Enough for me to see I'd hit something true. I stepped back. My heels dug into the carpet like roots I no longer wanted. I'll smile tomorrow, I said. But tonight? I looked at them both. Lauren, her lips parted like she wanted to apologize but couldn't find the right shape. Donna, arms crossed like a woman watching her project unravel. You'll hear me. And I turned. My hands were trembling, but my spine stayed straight. I opened the door with more force than necessary, the noise snapping through the room like the start of a thunderstorm. Behind me, lavender petals fell from Lauren's bouquet. Someone must have knocked it over in the chaos, and scattered across the carpet like confetti. For a funeral, because that's what this was. The funeral of the version of me they created. The obedient one, the quiet one, the one who never asked. I didn't slam the door, but I made sure it closed loud enough that they'd remember it. The kitchen smelled like baked ziti and lemon dish soap, but neither could mask the weight in the air. The dishwasher hummed quietly behind us, its rhythm too steady to match my heartbeat. I sat on one side of the table, knees tucked up, a glass of water sweating in front of me. Donna sat across, hands folded so tightly her knuckles were pale. There was a paper napkin under her palm, already torn in half. "You're not adopted," she said, as if that made things better. "You're borrowed." Borrowed? I blinked, not sure I'd heard right. "Like, what?" I asked. "A library book?" She forced a smile, too wide, too still. "It's called a kinship placement. It's not the same as adoption. It's more temporary, technically. We did it because your mother, she wasn't in a place to raise a baby, so we stepped in." My mother. The one we didn't talk about. The one whose photo I once found locked in Donna's jewelry drawer when I was 9, hidden beneath receipts and a velvet pouch of pearl earrings. "You said she was gone," I said. "She was." Donna adjusted her sleeves, though they didn't need adjusting. "In the sense that she couldn't be here. Not safely. Not for you." My fork scraped across the plate, the metal to ceramic sound sharp and jarring. I hadn't eaten much of the ziti anyway. My appetite had vanished somewhere between "you're not adopted" and "you're borrowed." "I found something," I said quietly, studying the condensation on my glass. Donna's posture stiffened. "In the closet, in the box labeled linens. There was a picture, a sonogram actually." She said nothing. "It said baby girl green. That was me, wasn't it?" Donna's voice was tight. "That was a long time ago. You said it was someone else. You were 9, Rachel. What did you want me to say?" "The truth," I said, louder than I meant to. There was a pause. Then she reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Or maybe it was meant to be comforting. But her fingers pressed down just a little too hard. Not painful, but enough to keep me still. Like a paperweight on a letter she didn't want blown open. "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to," she said. I stared at our hands. Hers still bore the faint scent of lemon cleaner. Mine smelled like pasta sauce and pencil eraser. "I just want to know where I came from," I whispered. "You came from us." Her tone was final. We sat like that for another minute, maybe 2. Then she stood, cleared the plates without a word, and dropped them gently into the sink. Later that night, in my bedroom with the curtains half closed and the fan humming overhead, I opened my journal and wrote, "Borrowed things break." I hope I'm not one of them. I stepped outside onto the porch, barefoot, the old wooden slats cool beneath my heels. The cicadas were loud that night, buzzing like they knew something I didn't. I lit the citronella candle from the patio table and watched the flame flicker to life. It danced nervously, almost like it was afraid of being seen. I remember leaning forward, elbows on my knees, thinking, what does my real mom smell like? Not perfume, not lemon cleaner, not the scent of candles that try to cover up burnt edges. Maybe she smells like cocoa butter and laundry soap. Or maybe like regret. I closed my eyes and listened to the bugs and the breeze and the sound of a house that had always kept its doors shut just a little too tight. I smiled, because that's what they raised me to do. But inside, I was starting to rot. The sun hung low over the vineyard, painting the rows of vines in golden haze. Folding chairs were lined in perfect symmetry. Ivory roses curved around the wedding arch, each petal blushing toward sunset. Soft instrumental covers of pop songs floated from hidden speakers. Everything was curated, crisp, controlled, just like Donna liked it. I stood near the back patio, adjusting the thin strap of my lavender bridesmaid dress, watching Lauren pose with her bouquet. The photographer circled her like a bee to sugar. Guests passed mason jar cocktails and whispered about the florals, the caterer, the way the bride just glowed. "She looks like you," an older woman said to me, smiling warmly. "You two could be sisters?" I smiled. It was easier than explaining the truth. My purse hung from my wrist, weighted more by the speech inside than the lip gloss and backup safety pins. I had written it the night before, after the bridal suite incident, after lavender petals fell like tiny funeral flags. But I didn't rewrite the speech. I left the one Lauren had asked me to read, the one Donna had reviewed, polished, pre-approved. Because part of me was still trying to be good, until the moment they called my name. Let's give a round of applause for our beautiful maid of honor, Rachel. 200 people clapped. I walked to the mic. My heels sank into the lawn with every step. It felt like the earth itself was trying to hold me back. I reached the little podium they'd set up near the edge of the pergola. My hands shook slightly as I unfolded the paper. I stared at the black ink. The first line read, "Lauren has been like a sister to me since we were little." I looked up. Donna sat near the front. Her dress was champagne-colored, understated, and tasteful. Her smile, just tight enough to be unnatural. Frank sat beside her, staring into his napkin like it held the secrets of the universe. Lauren stood to the side, clutching her bouquet, face frozen in a way only I would recognize. She was waiting for me to follow the script. But I had a different one now. I looked back at the guests, at the sea of expectant faces, many of whom had seen me grow up, had ruffled my hair at family reunions, had told me I looked more and more like Donna every year. I cleared my throat. "Hi," I began, voice soft but steady. "I was supposed to read something tonight, something sweet, safe, familiar." The crowd chuckled politely. But I decided I'd rather tell the truth. I looked at Donna. The clapping stopped. I continued, louder now. For most of my life, I was told that Lauren was my cousin, that Donna and Frank were my parents, that the life I was living was mine. People began shifting in their seats. But that wasn't true. A collective silence fell over the vineyard. "I'm not Lauren's cousin," I said. "I'm her sister." A sharp gasp came from somewhere near the cake table. "My name is Rachel Green. My mother is not the woman who raised me. My mother is the woman you were all told not to mention. And for 14 years, no one thought I deserved to know that." Donna stood up. Lauren dropped her bouquet. Frank's chair creaked as he leaned forward. "And I'm not telling you this to ruin a wedding," I added. "I'm telling you because I don't want to live in a lie that wasn't mine to begin with." I folded the paper in my hand, not the one I read from, but the one I hadn't. Then I dropped the mic. Literally. The feedback squealed through the speakers as I turned and walked off the grass. I passed the tent with the photo booth, where Lauren and I had taken silly pictures 2 hours earlier. I passed the buffet, where someone was carving prime rib. I passed 2 women whispering, one clutching a mimosa like a lifeline. No one stopped me. At the parking lot, I slid into the passenger seat of my own car. I didn't drive. I just sat. The bridesmaid gift bag sat unopened next to me, tissue paper still fluffed neatly. I pulled out the contents, a pink candle labeled "To my best girls," a tube of nude lip gloss, and a handwritten note that said, "Thank you for standing beside me on my biggest day." I stared at it for a long moment, then folded it in half, then in quarters. I didn't tear it, just folded it until it couldn't be folded anymore. The sun dipped behind the mountains, the sky turned amber, then plum. My phone buzzed. One text. From Lauren. "I didn't know how to be your sister. I still don't." I stared at the screen. Then I deleted the message. But I kept the photo of us from when we were kids, matching headbands, sticky with juice boxes, and joy. Back when I believed what they told me. Back when smiling didn't feel like lying. As I sat there, engine off, my fingers traced the stitching on the steering wheel. I remembered the first time I rode in this car. Lauren had been in the passenger seat then, offering me a mint, playing her favorite playlist. Back then, she felt like the big sister I never had, even if I didn't know she truly was. Now, the silence between us was thicker than secrets. I looked through the windshield at the vineyard still lit up behind me. It looked magical from a distance. Fairy lights danced in the dusk, and the DJ had switched to an upbeat tune as if trying to undo the silence I'd just planted like a crack in the soil. In another world, I'd have walked back, laughed it off, claimed it was just nerves. But in this one, I'd cracked open the truth. And there was no way to unsay it. The bridesmaid bag sat like a monument to performance. Pretty, packaged, meaningless. I reached over, opened the glove box, and slipped the folded note inside. There it would stay, a reminder of the day I stopped playing nice. Of the day I rewrote the role they cast me in. For the first time, I didn't feel borrowed. I felt like someone stepping into her own name. The sky deepened into night. Stars began to show themselves. Quiet, constant, unashamed. Some stories, I thought, don't need permission to be told. They just need someone brave enough to speak. She opened the door slowly, blinking once, as though she had seen a ghost. Or worse, something she buried that had come back on its own, breathing, walking, calling her name. Her eyes were the first thing I saw. Not because they were startling, but because they were mine. I hadn't known what to expect when I pulled into the driveway of the halfway house in Aurora. It looked like every modest apartment building from the outside. Stucco walls, faded green trim, and mailboxes with peeling numbers. But I knew this was the place. She had signed her last letter with the address, a trembling hand in blue ink, tucked into a manila envelope Donna never meant for me to find. Samantha Green. My mother. She opened the door in a sweater 3 sizes too big and jeans that sagged at the knee. Her hair was pulled into a low bun, strands loose, stubborn, curling around her face. Her voice was hoarse when she finally said, "You found me." We stood in silence. Me on the welcome mat, her with a chipped mug in hand. Peppermint, I would later learn. It filled the apartment with a clean, quiet smell that didn't match the gravity of the moment. "I came for answers," I said. She stepped back. "Then you better come in." Inside, the furniture didn't match. A mustard-colored love seat, a folding table with 2 chairs, a bookshelf of paperbacks stacked sideways. But it felt lived in. Honest, like someone had tried to put the pieces together, even if they didn't quite fit. She poured tea from the hot plate into another mug, handed it to me without ceremony. "I didn't know if you ever would," she said. "Come find me, I mean." "I didn't either," I replied. We sat at the small table, knees almost touching, hands wrapped around mugs like anchors. She didn't ask how I found her. She didn't ask why now. Maybe she already knew. Maybe she'd been preparing for this moment in every journal she scribbled in, every card she wrote and never mailed. "I wanted you," she said finally. "God, I wanted you so badly, but I was not okay." She looked up at me. Her eyes had bags beneath them, not from makeup, but from time. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. I was 23 and couldn't remember to eat, let alone keep you safe. So I begged my sister, Donna, to take you. I said it would be temporary. "She said you were gone," I replied. "Not dead, just removed." She flinched. "I sent letters, birthday cards, even a stuffed rabbit when you were 5. She never responded. I thought maybe she burned them. She kept them. I found one. It was stamped return to sender." Samantha let out a bitter laugh, her shoulders sagging with it. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folded sonogram photo. This was me, right? She took it in shaking hands. Her fingers ran over the black and white image like she was trying to touch something long vanished. "My God," she whispered. "I haven't seen this in—" Her voice cracked. She held the photo to her chest and sobbed. And I let her. Because I needed to cry too. After a long pause, Samantha looked at me again. "They erased me so cleanly, I started to believe I didn't deserve you." The words sat between us like a stone on glass. I swallowed, hard. "Then I'll decide who deserves me from now on." She nodded, slowly. Like she didn't expect forgiveness, but would carry the grace of being heard. She got up and walked to the bookshelf. From a worn jewelry box, she pulled out a locket. Its chain thin, delicate, broken at the clasp. She held it out to me with both hands. "It was my mother's, your grandmother. I've kept it all these years. I don't know if it still opens." I took it carefully. The hinge clicked faintly, revealing a tiny photo of a woman with dark hair and a smirk too familiar to be anyone but family. "Thank you," I said. Samantha didn't speak again. She just smiled. Tired, grateful, free in some small way. I stood up, tucking the locket into my hoodie pocket. "I'm not running away," I said at the door, "but I can't stay in a story someone else wrote for me." As she wiped her face, I looked around again, really looked. There was a calendar on the fridge with a photo of a lighthouse, notes scribbled for group therapy and a reminder, "Call pharmacy." The couch had a knitted throw draped over one side. This wasn't just survival. This was her version of rebuilding. "I used to wonder if you'd remember me," she said quietly. "Some kids do. Even from the womb. I used to think maybe you'd look in the mirror one day and feel something familiar." I looked down at my tea, now gone cold. "I did," I said. "I saw it in my eyes. I just didn't know who they belonged to. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything we never got to share. Birthdays, bedtime stories, band-aids and bike rides. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know," I said. Then I asked the one question I hadn't dared speak. "Why didn't you fight for me?" She didn't answer right away. "I did, in the beginning, but no one thought I could win, not even me." Her honesty hurt more than a lie would have, but it also healed something. We said nothing for a while after that. Just sat in the room, two women linked by blood and broken time, sipping cold peppermint tea. Back in my car, I held the locket in my hand for a long time before putting it on the dashboard. It caught the light, a glint of past generations reflecting off plastic and dust. I didn't cry, not then. I just breathed. And in that breath, I felt something shift. Not loudly, not with fanfare, but with quiet certainty. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the start of mine. I packed 3 boxes. No more. No less. The first was filled with journals. Dozens of them, from the year I first learned cursive to the one I bought 2 weeks ago. The second held clothes that still felt like mine. And the third, my most fragile, held a baby photo, the broken locket, and a single stuffed rabbit with one ear chewed from time I no longer remembered. The calendar on the wall still read June, even though it was almost August. My trophy shelf was dusty. The pink suitcase under my bed still had a cracked handle. Nothing had changed in this room since high school. Except me. Donna stood in the hallway. She didn't speak, just hovered like a warning label. Frank appeared behind her, holding a box cutter, then stepping back like he was afraid of cutting something open that couldn't be taped shut again. "I can take that one," he said softly, gesturing toward the box labeled books. I nodded. He took it. Didn't meet my eyes. In the top drawer of my desk, beneath dried-out pens and old report cards, I found the note. A folded sheet of cream paper, creased from hesitation. "Gratitude would have been enough," it said in Donna's cursive. I stared at it for a long time before walking to the bathroom, placing it in the sink, and lighting it on fire with a cheap gas station lighter. The flame curled the edges like a lip sneering. Ash bloomed and collapsed into the basin. No tears, just heat. The next morning I loaded everything into the back seat and trunk of my old Honda Civic. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't leave a note. I just turned the ignition, shifted into drive, and pulled away from the house that had raised me in secrets. I stopped only 3 times, once for gas, once for a cherry pie from a roadside diner in Idaho, and once to stretch my legs at a scenic overlook where I couldn't see anything through the fog, but still felt more visible than I ever had. The playlist I made for the trip was called Starting Over. It began with a scratchy acoustic version of Landslide and ended with silence. Seattle welcomed me with gray skies and the smell of salt and rain. I found a micro apartment with a window no bigger than a shoebox and signed a 6-month lease. The walls were white. The carpet was thin. It was mine. The next day, I went to the DMV. The line wrapped around the building, as if everyone in the city had decided today was the day to reclaim something. A clerk with short pink hair and a Deadpool hoodie called my number. She didn't smile, but her eyes were kind. "Name change form?" she asked. I nodded, handing her the papers. She read them quickly, then tapped the screen in front of her. "First name?" she asked. "Rachel." She typed. "Last name?" I paused. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to feel the full weight of it before saying it aloud. "Green," I said. The word looked right on her screen. Balanced. Whole. The clerk printed the form and slid it across the counter. "Sign here," she said, tapping twice. The pen shook slightly in my hand, not from fear, but from everything it carried. I signed my name slowly, like carving it into something that mattered. When I was done, she stamped the paper with a heavy thunk that echoed more than it should have. "Welcome back," she said, and it wasn't sarcastic. It was quiet. Like someone returning from a long trip no one knew they were on. I exhaled. Not like I'd finished something, but like I'd finally started breathing. That night, I unpacked in silence. I put the journals on the secondhand bookshelf I bought off Facebook Marketplace. The locket, still broken, went into a small glass dish by my bed, nestled beside a smooth stone I picked up at the overlook. I didn't hang anything on the walls. I wanted to see how the place felt first. But I did open a fresh notebook, and on the first page I wrote, "I am not what they said I was. I am Rachel Green, and I name myself." Outside, the rain softened against the windows, like it had been holding its breath for me too. Somewhere along the Washington state border, I pulled over at a rest stop no bigger than a gas station bathroom. I walked to the edge of the parking lot, where pine trees lined the path like witnesses. The air was thick with moss and wet bark. I stood there for a long time, letting the cold soak through my sleeves, letting the wind bite my cheeks. It wasn't punishment. It was proof that I was real, that I wasn't just someone shaped by other people's fears. I thought about the first time Donna braided my hair, the first time Frank taught me how to ride a bike. I thought about Lauren's birthday party when we were 8 and someone called us twins. And I thought about all the times I'd smiled just to make other people more comfortable. I had been borrowed, but I wasn't broken. When I got back in the car, I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My reflection looked the same. Same dark eyes, same soft jaw, but something was different behind them, a kind of steadiness, a knowing. Later in Seattle, I wandered into a thrift store and bought a lamp shaped like a lighthouse. I didn't need it, but it reminded me of something my birth mother said, that she hoped one day I'd feel a pull, like the sea calling its own. I set the lamp on the windowsill and let it glow, even though I had no ocean view. It was enough to know I'd chosen it. Before going to bed that night, I stepped outside onto the small fire escape. It overlooked an alley and a dumpster, nothing poetic. But the sky above it was open. I closed my eyes and whispered my name. Once, twice. No one answered. But for the first time, I didn't need them to. Rachel Green was enough. She walked through the door with nothing but a duffel bag and a face that forgot how to belong. The lobby was quiet, like it always was just before noon. Sunlight filtered through soft curtains, casting dappled light on the bookshelf filled with journals. Every one of them blank, waiting. I noticed the girl right away. Early 20s, if that. Mascara smudged under both eyes. Her hoodie sleeves pulled down over her hands, knuckles red from gripping too hard for too long. She held a clipboard with the intake form, but only the top line was filled out. First name. The rest sat empty, like she was still deciding whether she deserved to be known. I didn't push. I'd learned not to. "Would you like some tea?" I asked. She looked at me, startled, as if she hadn't expected warmth to be an option. "Okay," she whispered. I led her to the small kitchen area where volunteers stocked mismatched mugs. She chose one with a chipped rim and a faded picture of a sunflower. "Peppermint okay?" She nodded. I poured her a cup and we walked to the couch by the mural. It spanned the whole far wall, painted in soft shades of blue and green, with the words, "Not lost, just unwritten." It was the first thing I'd painted after we opened the center, the first thing that ever felt like mine. 4 years ago, I didn't know my name. Now I helped other women find theirs. The girl sipped her tea slowly. Her shoulders loosened, just slightly, like her body was remembering how to be held even without arms around it. "You don't have to talk," I said. "You just have to be here." She nodded again. A volunteer walked by with a basket of folded blankets, smiled at us, and kept moving. The center ran quietly, gently. We weren't built for performance. We were built for presence. The girl stared at the mural again, her eyes tracing the brushstrokes like they held a map. "I don't know who I am," she said suddenly. Her voice didn't tremble, but her hands did. I reached beside the couch and pulled a clean journal from the shelf. It was pale green, unlined, heavy in the hand, like something meant for truth. I handed it to her. "Maybe that's because no one ever told your story the right way," I said. "Now it's your turn." She looked at me, really looked. Her mouth opened like she might say thank you, but instead she cried. Not loudly, not with theatrics. Just a slow, steady release, like her body had finally found permission. I didn't move. I didn't reach out. I just stayed, solid, present, the way no one ever stayed for me. After a while, the tears stopped. The girl didn't apologize. I was glad. Apologies are often just armor we put on too early. She held the journal close to her chest, as if afraid someone might take it before she even wrote a word. You can write anything, I said. Or nothing. You can scribble or draw or start on the last page and move backwards. There are no rules here. She gave the smallest nod I'd seen all day. We sat in silence a bit longer before she whispered, I like the mural. I smiled. I painted it the week we opened. It's pretty, she said. Strong. That's what stories are. She didn't say more. She didn't need to. Later that evening, after the building emptied and the volunteers clocked out, I walked back to my office. It was small, just a converted storage room with a desk and a lamp that flickered when it rained. On the shelf sat my own journal, untouched since I left Boulder. I opened it. The first page was blank, waiting like it always had. I picked up a pen and, without thinking too hard, wrote at the top, Who I am when no one's watching. And beneath it, in ink darker than I remembered owning, some stories begin with lies. But the ones we choose to write, those are the ones that live. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. The city kept moving, oblivious. But inside this little corner of the world, something had finally come full circle. Before I left for the night, I turned off the lights in the common area one by one. The shelves of blank journals glowed faintly in the twilight. I paused at the mural and ran my fingers along the final word. Unwritten. That word had haunted me once. Now it steadied me. Outside, the girl I met today stood near the exit, her duffel slung over one shoulder. She caught my eye, then looked quickly away, embarrassed at the tears from earlier. But she didn't run. Do you want a blanket for the night? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. I handed her one from the stack, soft and navy blue. Sleep well, I said. She didn't answer, but her grip on the journal tightened, and that was enough. Back in my office, I took out my planner. The week ahead was full. Intake meetings, volunteer interviews, supply runs. But I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt steady. That night, before bed, I lit the peppermint candle Samantha had given me on my first birthday I celebrated in my own name. It still smelled like possibility. As I watched the flame sway, I thought of all the women still out there, still unnamed, still unwritten, and I whispered the same words I always did before I turned out the light. You're not alone. We're already making room for your story. Some stories begin with silence. Mine began again when I chose to speak, not loudly, but truthfully. You don't have to be whole to start over. Sometimes healing begins with one safe place, one honest word, or one person who stays. We are not defined by what we were denied, but by what we dare to reclaim. If this story touched something in you, I hope you'll share a piece of your own. Because the world needs more names spoken with love, and fewer stories left unwritten.